Hello, good afternoon. You're welcome to TV3. This is Agenda, and my name is Deborah Kwabla. Ghana's quest to digitize our records has been applauded by many. What threats does this expose us to, and what about the cybersecurity issues? How does this also affect national security? That's what we are discussing today on Agenda on TV3. With me in the studio this afternoon to look at this discussion from far left, we have Mr. Adam Bona. He is a security expert. In the middle, we have Mr. Albert Ntwibo-Esiakon. He's a cybersecurity advisor to government. And on my immediate left, we have Professor Clement Jidono. He's president of Accra Institute of Technology. Welcome, gentlemen, to Agenda. We'll start with Mr. Esiakon. The issue of cybersecurity, why the need to make sure that we make sure that cybersecurity issues are taken seriously?
Thank you, Debbie. Good afternoon to you and also to your viewers. I think you already gave the background, and the government within the past few years, if you look at our ecosystem, there has been a consistent effort by government to make sure we catch up with the digital agenda globally. And if you look at ITU records, Ghana is one of the fast-growing countries as far as ICT development is concerned. And within the last few months, I think we've seen several activities as far as government is concerned with digitalization. We had the National Identification System, the Digital Addressing System, paperless ports, the Registrar General has gone paperless, DVLA, and yesterday I read the police is going paperless. I think that the list is uncountable. If we reflect on this development, Ghana has got no choice but rather to step up its cybersecurity. And I think it is more important than any time in the history of this country for us to take our cybersecurity serious. Because of that, last week was a full cybersecurity week within this country. The president opened the session, and he made bold commitments as far as stepping up our cybersecurity is concerned. So I think there's a new vision of the government based on the fact that the country is developing along the line of all modern societies in which ICT is, and it's a mechanism for development. And for that matter, our cybersecurity should be taken seriously.
Prof, we are looking at a number of databases. We know we want to go national and have everything synchronized so that we have a national database. But we have DVLA doing its own, we have Best and Dares, we have the other institutions. Looking at the way we are going, does this pose security threats in your view?
Well, good afternoon to you and to your viewers. Well, all those applications you mentioned are in the area of e-government applications, systems which is being put together by the various agencies. It's very, very important for us to put this within historical perspective. This process started far back in the late 1990s under the NDC government. Actually, I could remember Spio Gabra was a communication minister then to Mahama as a communication minister. The tempo actually went higher when Felix Osu Ajema became the Minister of Communications, then to Canada Pa, then to the current Speaker of the National Assembly. All those people.
We've been at it for a very long time.
Yes, and for a long time. Specifically, a threshold action which took place was in 2003 when the government at the time launched the ICT for Accelerated Development policy.
Could please speak up a little
yes,
bit?
Yes, ICT for Accelerated Development policy, which I authored. That policy, which has a time span of up to 2020, has all these elements we are talking about. One of them, the e-government. So all those applications we just mentioned are part of that e-government strategy, which was part of the policy. Then after that, there was all our strategies put together, and the key one for interest for us is the national policy, strategy, e-security policy. So the good thing about this is that a lot of things in Ghana have political connotation, but when it comes to ICT and issue there, you have no political connotation. Every single government have put in an effort. So I'm not surprised that this government is putting in the needed effort to push us there. Talk about the systems that we have. They were all they all anchor in that 2003 policy that we must deploy ICT for development. And part of that is the e-government. So far back then, we did recognize that we will need to put in place cyber security measures. It's going to be very important. And I must make the point that we are not the only one looking at this. Every single country in this world have a cyber security problem.
Because we are living online these days. Everything is online. Everything is
online. This have been anticipated way back, that we will reach this stage. So a couple of years ago, we know that we were going to reach this stage.
Mr. Bona,
yes.
What do you think? We've gone through a number of things. We've done a national ID before. We know that national ID is not fully in use. We've done many, many things, and we are getting into another phase of getting the Ghana card. The way we collect data, we collect from this point, collect from that point. Do you feel that we consider the security of this data? The way we collect data at various points, and sometimes the data is not used, and then we collect again.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, and good afternoon to your cherished viewers, and also good afternoon to the folks at Security Warehouse. I'm also the CEO for Security Warehouse Limited. With regards to the question you asked, I have always raised issues to do with, every sector of our economy or every sector of government doing things, collecting data for their own use. And one of the things I realized was because we don't have the infrastructure that would help us probably store all of this data. When I say the infrastructure, what I mean is, do we have servers to be able to localize servers, to be able to host, for instance, I go to take a passport. Does the passport office share my information with, for instance, the national, if we had a localized database? This would have been easy to be able to do that.
Not having a localized database, what threats does it pose to
us? Well,
what
what it means is that we are going to predominantly be squatting on third-party servers and then, cloud servers and all that. And so, the advent of what you call it, the bad guys who are always sitting in the dark rooms and trying to jailbreak and steal people's information. If you know the almighty America, somehow they still feel their election was compromised, all right, by, another country. And so we seems to be running faster than our legs can carry us. If you realize, I think just before the National Cybersecurity Conference and the rest were held, there were all these issues about mobile money, getting people stealing here and there. Is instrumental to have him. Probably governments are now learning, because with what I know in the past, successive governments, you have to be a foot soldier to be enlisted to play a part in critical, use of some of this information. And so what then happens is that once you are misadvised, you are misinformed. And so information, you have this doing that, that doing that, that doing that. And so when I heard the news about we now have a national, cyber advisor to the ministry, who, when I checked the profile, I thought, yes, we seems to be trying to solve a particular problem. And so in moving forward, we've got to go that way, use technocrats, use people who can advise, because you see, at the end of the day, we've had a national ID card that didn't work. We've had, I have a, voter's card that doesn't look like a voter's card. Why can't we have
we are changing our driver's license.
Very well.
In a few days.
And there are so many. If you ask me from the security point of view, I would say we are running faster than our legs could carry us. And usually, once a country does that, you compound the problems. Because if you look at the reported incidents of mobile money fraud, it's alarming. is astronomical, it's alarming. And the reason is that we didn't put in checks before the advent of, virtual money. You don't have to really carry money. You can transfer money from A to Z without going through. Definitely the bad guys would steal from you. And now I've had people call me. And sometimes, excuse me to say, some of these people can't even string proper English together. And they're the people who
are able to
do this to you. It tells you that someone who probably have a BSc in system administration or in something, if that person decides to shut down the whole of Bank of Ghana, he will do that. And so we have to put in permanent checks. And I would call for permanent checks in the sense that we do, for instance, we move forward, then we come back, try to put in the checks. Why shouldn't we? You can't
So that you think we have a problem with the way we plan?
Yes, planning is, and I put that at the doorstep of sometimes the foot soldiering, where technocrats, technocrats always are not involved in, doing what is necessary, and you have somebody, a foot soldier, being brought in. I know it's an area most people wouldn't want to talk about, but some of us will want to talk about it, because you see, the country belongs to all of us. If we sit back and say we won't deal with this canker,
then it
one
will come
day
back
I would be here,
bite all of us.
And Well,
Mr. Bisiaku, the big one that we are all faced with now is the digital address system.
Correct.
And we are all talking about it. Some are excited, some have started criticizing. What are the security safeguards for this important national system that has been put together? Because then you want to be sure to be able to get online and register your address and put in your IDs and all that, because it's one that we are all concerned about.
Thank you, Debbie. First of all, Sir Adams, thanks for the compliment. I think I've been in this show severally, before I was appointed to advise the government, and we've been singing all the song. And I'm happy the fact that we're doing this discussion, and we are appreciating cybersecurity is not a matter of politics. It is a matter of security of Ghana, and I think that is a vision that the new Minister for Communication actually is advocating. Wherever you belong to, as far as you have the expertise to help secure our digital assets. I think the electronic environment doesn't belong to one political party. Everybody is doing investment in this area, and the repercussion, if we don't address them, is the impact is on everybody.
So what are we doing with the national
I think that's what I'm
digital, the Ghana Post GPS?
A lot of things came out, and I had several calls, and look, it was an interesting, but criticism is good. Why I say it, and what the ministry has done. And then
are they just mere criticisms, or there are some very valid feedback?
I have my colleagues here, and they appreciate. Before you go out to, launch such a project, bring such ICT infrastructure, which is of national importance, 2 levels of security assessment are normally conducted. The first one is internal. So the project team, as they are doing this thing, has to conduct serious tests from all angles. This thing has been done. I've seen the reports, right? Apart from that, you need to have external assessment. Somebody who is totally disconnected to the project, also doing serious security assessment on infrastructure. With this 2, at least the minimum, it gives you certain assurance that the system is okay. This thing has been done. And I've seen the report, the caliber of work that has been. It says the system has got a fair level of security in place. However, the system is still in development stage. I think if you followed, Deputy Minister for Communications actually mentioned the offline mode is being, developed. So that will be another version. It means some sort of work is going, and within security, we appreciate. Anytime you do upgrades, innovation, you need to also watch the security. So what we have advised, based on the advice we gave, constantly keep security of the system in check, and that is what is going. So the 2 assessment that, we were guaranteed that the system is okay, it can go like has been done. Some of the issues which have been raised, I don't want to go much into that, but not really in terms of the substance. Data Protection Commission has also done some privacy assessment, and that is also okay.
So what does it mean to have to say or to have a fair system?
No, fair system.
The security system is fairly good.
It covers different level. One, it has to do with the technology, the kind of technology which is actually collecting and holding the data. It also looks at the perimeter security around that. It also looks at the people who are working. It also looks at where data is certain. There's a lot of different angles that comes in. Data communication, what level of encryption is in place, what sort of firewall, what levels. These are the areas that you look at to guarantee yourself.
Now let's look at where the data sits briefly before we come to Prof. Where the data sits.
I think you got to.
Are we safe having our data out there on third-party servers
you got
that
to
usually are private owned?
He mentioned the data is not entirely certain outside. There is a collaboration with Amazon that they're working on. You remember they also got some license from Google. You see, let's be real. In the current modern technology environment...
I want you to clarify this before you move on. You said the data is not entirely sitting out there. Does it mean we have some servers here?
Absolutely. I don't know. NITA has got a huge data center in place. Seriously. I serve on NITA board. A huge, built by the previous government. Huge. And now there is what the government is currently doing is to make sure that NITA's infrastructure will be able to host all those national infrastructures that we are building. I think there is a roadmap, right? Because we need to make sure, and my colleague Adam mentioned that, are we competent enough for us to hold our data so that 24/7 it can function? It is a question of infrastructure, but also it has impact on a lot of things. Doomsday alone could impact on how well your data center is working.
That's very...
Absolutely. So you need to make sure you have the infrastructure right, but you also have all the various aspects that will support your data center to function. Then you can have in-house. We all want our data to be sorted in Ghana. But first things first, we need to make sure the bases are right.
And then we can build on that.
Super. I think you've said that.
Prof, what's your level of comfort with the way we do things? For instance, we started with SIM card registration, and we hear that we have to do re-registration of SIM cards. We started with a national ID, now we are going Ghana card. How does that make you feel?
Well, that is the policy environment, the regulatory environment, the documents about how to do all those things are all in place. Yes, sometimes the implementation will need to be pushed up a little bit.
Prof, specifically about the SIM card registration, it bothers me because I was as soon as the law was passed and we needed to, we registered very quickly. I registered, I got my SIM card, and so hearing that I have to re-register bothers me, and it bothers a lot of other people.
You see, we need to be very careful the areas which are responsibility of government data, government information held by government. And the other side is information held by private institutions, like the mobile phone provider and so forth and so forth. All government can do, which is again is part of the policy framework which is in place, that government will ensure that all private sector organizations who hold critical data provide security for those data. As to whether something went wrong at the private sector side, that is why they were asking her to re-register, I don't know. All government can do is put in place the legislation instrument which they have done, put in place the policy which they have done, ask people to do it which they have done. If things didn't go right, it is not possible for her to say that it's government who have done something wrong. It may be the private sector organizations who are the people collecting the data might not have done it well. But as some city, I don't know who went wrong. So if they say they want us to re-register again, the national ID is a different matter. It's a purely government business. But the registration on the SIM card, the private sector was involved. The mobile service provider was involved.
But government passed the law, the LI, to get all SIM cards registered.
Yes.
So someone needed to make sure that we complied and did the right thing.
Where
Mr. Bisiako, do you have an idea why we have to re-register our SIM cards? And why do we have to do it again when we did it a few years ago?
Right. I'm happy you mentioned about registration. Yes, the private sector will have to register because they are obliged by the law to do so. With what will they register? What a national identification card? Is it passports? Is that driver's licenses? Is that a NHIS card? Is that a SNAID card? We have conducted assessment, and I think it's a common knowledge within this country that the databases providing those information are not reliable. It's not because it's easier for someone to obtain a fictitious driver's license. I think you've read a lot in police arresting people with voters' ID card. There are fake passports in circulation. All these things are there. And people have managed to use this fictitious document to get their SIM cards. That is one of the problems. Yeah, there has been lapses.
We've had a lot of things challenged in this country, including our national voters' ID.
Right.
But we use that to vote.
Great. Right now. And I think before the election, on this same platform, this very television, we had a serious discussion on that. And I think we pointed out evidence of, fictitious documents all over the place. Now, the reason why we need to re-register the SIM card is we're going to have a national ID card. And based on what I'm getting from NIA, they're going to make sure they validate whatever form of ID that is submitted, that is checked. Right? So that means the level of reliability as far as NIA database is concerned is higher up comparatively to the various databases that we are having. In that case, the percentage of reliability that as a country we can base on to register the SIM card is better. And the same thing with a connection to the, digital addressing system, so that some kind of tracing can also be possible. As we sit here now, if you take a voter's ID card, and the bankers know very well, they use them to defraud. It goes to the police CID, and where do you register? Denta Trotro Station. So you get to a Denta Trotro Station, you're looking for a suspect. It's impossible to trace a suspect. So there has been challenges as far as existing database data are concerned. And the re-registration of the SIM card is to provide one level. Apparently, the national ID card is going to be the only identity document that is going to be used for all these activities. That means we're getting there. It doesn't mean you have 100% clean database. But
and if you are not Ghanaian, then what do you do?
I think apparently.
Or what do you?
No, there is. I think NIA also making register for foreigners. But I think that is clear. We know you're a foreigner and you wouldn't be able to vote. So the distinction will be clear as far as who a Ghanaian is and who a foreigner is.
But Mr. Bernard, we have issues with every card that we have. We have issues with our driver's license. We have issues with our passport. We have issues with our voters' ID. And now we've virtually scrapped our national ID. Now we are going for our Ghana card. What should we do to make sure that this Ghana card, we don't have issues with it? Because every identity that we hold in this country, we have issues with it.
Thank you very much. Once again, good afternoon to your cherished viewers. I have raised this issue of us not having a all these issues you are raising has to do with national security. National security. My voter's ID card identifies me whether I could be a terrorist. If I commit crime, I could easily be arrested. But as we speak, we don't have a comprehensive national security and safety policy. We don't have one. We have disjointed policies. We have a marine, marine security policy. We have something to do with cyber. If you remember recently when we had the gas explosion, the president, out of frustration, said we were going to get some of these things right. It is the reason why we somehow don't seem to have a clear-cut direction with regards to, what do you call it, one centralized database. if we had one centralized database like you mentioned, it is easy for the policymakers to say, in 5 years' time, we are going to scrap all of this card we are using. If you realize, with our passports, we used to have the ink written one, then we had the biometric one. Now we are moving towards a chip-based passport.
And when is that going
I
to come out? Because we're still using the biometric.
It is in the process. First of all, I think what the government is doing is good, trying to widen, open up, more locations where we can acquire passports instead of all of us converging at one place. I mean, passport office is supposed to be a high security zone, but you go there and there are all sorts of people there. Why? Because, what we are supposed to have done before probably changing over to, a particular type of passport, we didn't do it. And so your question as to why today this card, why today that card, tomorrow that card, is because we are still struggling. And I'm hoping that within the 4-year mandate of the current administration, the current leadership would ensure that we have if you go to Britain, I lived there for quite some time, they've always, every 4 years, the national security and safety policy is reviewed and sent to, their parliament to be, either approved or other thing. And with that, we would have been able to say we need $1 billion to finance the various components. But at the moment, when you have a gas explosion, we don't have money to deal with this issue. I know at least we have an education policy. Successive governments have reviewed it. Either you are coming and saying you are going to do progressively free, or you come and say free. But it is a policy. We have Get Fund. We have the National Health Insurance. It is a policy. In there, when I buy fuel, I think I contribute something towards. But when it comes to security, safety, cybersecurity, we don't actually have a comprehensive policy that says this is how it's going to be financed. I heard the Inspector General of Police. When you go to the Transformation Office, it's a wonderful office. The Agile Group are doing superb. The question I keep asking is, all of this, where are we going to when we don't have the money? The IG says we are going paperless. Where is the money? The IG needs to recruit. Where is the money to recruit? And so it comes back to us having, as a nation, taking our security and safety more serious. And security and safety is broad. It's very broad. But unfortunately, we kind of have a disjointed, we have this there, that there, that there, no money to finance all of it.
But is it a matter of money, or is having the documents? Because we have a Data Protection Act. Mr. Besiako will tell us the level of compliance, but we seem to put a lot of emphasis on the document. We have a Data Protection Act, now we are looking for a policy, and we develop the documents nicely all the time, and then the implementation. So should we put that amount of emphasis on the documents, or we should be more focused on the actions?
Well, as I said earlier on, the policy, the regulatory document, all those things have been in place for a long time. Take, for example, the national ID. The national ID predates this ICT process I talked to you about. It happened, they started during the time of Rawlings, this national ID issue. During the time of Rawlings, Kufuor took over, he made some progress. I think it was during his time that the registration took place. Is that correct? If I'm not mistaken. Okay? Well, I don't know what happened to that. Another government came over. This thing had been around for a long time. In fact, we started the national ID team long before some African countries. But when you go to those countries now, you find out that what we are talking about, they have done it way back, 10 years ago. So for me, this national ID issue is one of my area of disappointment in all our processes. Okay? The advisor is saying that, well, that is fundamental. It's a matter of everything. Now, the question is, where are we now? I registered, I never got no card. But I know a lot about the process, but I never got a card. So which are we going back to rural register? So for me, that is a source of major disappointment. And if you can get that right, we've been at it for years now. I said since the time of Rawlings, we have at it for years now. If you can get that right, then I'm a little bit concerned. It's not about policies. It's not about regulatory environment. We have all those things. They're all there. The documents are all there. It's implementation and the way we do it. As I always said, every government consistently think that this is important, we must do it. No government overwrite the previous government work. They all say, okay, we are continuing what the other guys was doing. But for me, that area is what I'm very concerned about. If you can get that database right, for me, it's not very important where the database is situated. It's not very important. Because now we have a crowd environment. A lot of countries don't put all the data in one place. You work on more than one leg. You have a mirror site. It's better to have the mirror site in another country. Once it's secured, you have no problem. So whether it's situated in Ghana or not is not an issue. The issue of the data center have been conceived way back in the early 2000s, and I'm glad that it's now in place. So for me, the policy is in place, the regulatory environment is in place, all the documents are in place. Is the actual consistent, not to haphazard implementation of the fundamental ones, which is our problem. This cybersecurity issue, for me, is becoming like in Ghana, like asking an elephant to pick up a needle. Yes.
So, Prof, you don't think we need a policy document that brings everything together?
Well, you see,
under that big umbrella.
Well, you can
so
always
that we can focus on the actions and make sure we get them right.
This thing was commented on in the original policy in 2003. A whole strategy has been developed, and that strategy has spawned a lot of activities. Some of the one we do correctly, some of the one we do haphazardly. The document is there. All we got to do is to actually implement them, and as we go in this business, the more you know, the less you know. When it comes to cybersecurity, the more you know, the less you know.
Because it's an evolving environment.
It's an evolving environment. Nobody will say that let's put a stop to document. But the ones we got have a lot of elements that we must implement and show by clear line of sight. This we said we'll do some years ago, we have done it, and here's the result. Hey, by the way, guys, we are going to update it, because this is not something you do and you go to sleep. So for me, that is my main worry, that we are not seen to be getting results. The president made some speech recently. He mentioned the same point. He recognized that ICT is the way that we must go to develop this country. He mentioned that capacity build is very important if you want to solve the cybersecurity issue. He mentioned all those, he mentioned the right things. I just hope that we make some progress along this, so that we can really solve this issue.
We'll hold it here and go for a break. When we come back, we listen to exactly what the president said, and we'll look at the discussion. We'll get into the details of that. We are discussing cybersecurity and national security, and this is Agenda on TV3. We'll be back shortly. We are discussing cybersecurity, how it relates to crime and national security, and my guests are still here. Mr. Bishop, we want to give some reaction, and then we listen to what the president said specifically about cybersecurity. Right.
I think it's important.
But I think I want you to focus on the data security issues, and especially how we are doing with compliance to the LI.
That's very important. But let me also emphasize that Ghana has a national cybersecurity policy and strategy.
Yeah. We do have.
This document started in 2011. It was approved by Cabinet, the last Cabinet in November 2016. And the current government, being led by the Minister of Communication, which has oversight responsibility on cybersecurity, is currently conducting review of the policy, because we started doing something in 2011. And, we're in 2017. It means there are certain changes that we need to bring to the table to make sure the document is consistent with international best practices. So that is being done. The question of why policy and you don't see implementation, I think, well, commitment is key. Also, when it comes to priority, is cybersecurity a priority for the government? Right, I think that's a question. Because if you say it's a priority, wherever there is money, and indeed, I think the president said that, possibly you're going to play the clip. But yes, it is, because we can't be investing so much in digital economy without seeing cybersecurity as important. It's a no-go area. But let me also give you where I said some assurance, because it gives me comfort in serving in this role, because of the commitment from the top. For the first time in 2018, we're going to have a budget line for cybersecurity. It hasn't happened before. In other words, having X amount of money dedicated to national cyber.
Having a budget line, is having a budget line enough? Is that budget actually adequate to do the work that has been set?
It is extremely significant. It means that the finance ministry has come to accept that for every year there will be some amount of money dedicated to cybersecurity. It's a good step, right? Apart from that, Ghana has got international partners. The Ministry of Communication has secured about $4 million from the World Bank, also to step up, Ghana's cybersecurity. So in terms of finances, because most of those things, as you mentioned, there are brilliant ideas here, all the strategies and policies, how are you going to get them? True, and it is a question of money. And I think these two dimensions, it gives me comfort that what we are focusing on, what we're discussing here, what the Ghanaians want to see in cybersecurity, we're going to see some kind of implementation. And work is actually being done. And the President mentioned some of the few of the activities that is being done behind the scenes. Right.
Let's listen to what the President said, and then we'll come back to the studio and discuss that. But cybersecurity issues should concern all of us. How much data you put out there of yourself, and your mobile money issues, your bank account issues. This is what we are discussing. We'll be back after listening to the President.
It is critical, therefore, that those in charge of protecting our ICT security are well equipped with the knowledge and the expertise to do so. The tools and competencies with which we fight crime must necessarily, therefore, change. We need to train and have a well-equipped corps of cybercrime fighters. But we should go further than that. I dare say it's time to take another look at the qualifications that we require in a policeman, for example. If what we used to define as crime has changed, then we should redefine the crime fighters as well.
Welcome back. You heard the President. I specifically want Mr. Bona to talk about, he said we need a competent cybercrime fighters.
Thank you.
How important is this?
It's so important. We should have done this as at yesterday. It's so important. There are so many young, people in this country who are doing wonderful. And so to be able to fight cybercrime, we need to get some of these young people, get them well trained, get them involved. But then the bottom line is that I know we don't have too much time. I would want to congratulate him and his team for the budgetary allocation they are going to get in 2018.
That's the Minister for Communication. She's a fighter.
For cybersecurity. But I want to say I hope to hear from the National Security Minister. I want to hear from the Interior Minister, Defense, because we need a comprehensive policy and then budget for all of it. But once we take care of cyber, remember, yes, the whole world is going cyber, but there are other things that has to be taken care of. And so we need competent people to fight.
So this young people that you talk about, just I'm curious, this young cyber savvy young people that we need to bring into the if you like, cybercrime fighters, are you recommending that they should be recruited into the security forces, or you are looking at people within the security getting their capacities built to be able to fight cybercrime?
Not really recruiting them, not government recruiting them and putting them on government payroll. They are, private entities that are running,
But we have security agencies, and can't we look at building those capacities?
No,
to be able to support
the truth is that government, once it becomes just government, then there is a problem. And so usually...
What problem specifically?
Usually, if it is just government, sometimes the struggle to sometimes implement, the struggle to even get the right people. I mean, you and I know the reason why sometimes people commit crimes and they are not arrested. And then it is linked to because some big man out there is going to say release him to go. But if we can have, I mean, this current administration is talking about government-private collaboration. And so I wouldn't want to say all the young people, because then that is going to be kind of overburdening, what you call it. But government can identify certain areas and bring in private, you know, entities who are given contracts. For instance, you are given contract to see to it that probably the cyber security or the security infrastructure at the ports are properly taken care of. If it's a 2-year contract, you take care of it, and by so doing, we are able to also even export whatever skill we would have acquired. But if you put everybody on government payroll and I acquire the skill, I would have to wait here till I go on pension. But if it's a private entity, the rate at which Ghana is running fast with ICT, we are running faster than our neighbors in the West Coast, in West Africa. It means that if we developed these young people, we could export most of them to some of these countries and bring in the needed, you know, cash back into the country. And so I wouldn't say the burden should, just that government should collaborate more with private entities. I mean, recently at the MOBEX conference, I mean, there were so many, you know, young people who were there paying attention to what was going on. And so I think that initiatives like this are some of the things we should encourage. We had the National Cyber Security Conference. There were so many people, the policymakers were there. And so we should go beyond the talk.
So you're looking at collaboration between government and private sector.
I mean, I'm sure on your program, he said there's a budget 2018. So probably tomorrow morning, the newspapers are going to carry that we have a cybersecurity budget for 2018, which is fundamental, which is very fundamental. And so I think we should go beyond that.
But I'm thinking that having a budget is good, but is the budget adequate? Is what we should be looking at, so that we can focus on the actions.
The truth is that, have we had that?
So the commitment is significant,
no, mine is that,
but then adequacy for me is also very important. Something that you didn't
have in the past. If you have a minute percentage of something you didn't have in the past, it means that there is more room for you to keep asking. But if you've never been given, chances are that you will not be given, no matter what. And well, so, but I would want to say,
so we'll keep an eye on that and see how much is put out and how much effort we put on that to make sure we get this done. Prof, cybersecurity or cybercrime fighters, security fighters, how does that sound? Sounds great.
Well, when it comes to the issue of cybersecurity, there are three key players. One is government, which have a big responsibility to secure our systems, to secure our data, and to secure the entire space. The other one is the private sector, the banks, the hospitals, and the lot, who keeps data on us, which are critical information about us. They have a responsibility to secure that information. And again, that is also part of the policy, that government should see that banks can even be closed down if in case they don't secure their data. The third is we, the citizens. You see, for every cybersecurity lock, there's a key. That key may be in the hands of the citizens. If you misplace your key, somebody might pick the key and unlock your money and take it. That's cybercrime. Sometimes the key is in the hands of the right people. The cyber criminal also know how to manufacture keys. But every system has a lock. So for me, this triple issue of government responsibility, we've talked a lot about the government responsibility, whether they are doing it or not doing it, they have the budget for it, they don't have a budget for it. The private sector is actually key. The banks is a private sector, it's not government. The hospital is a private sector, not government. A lot of the mobile service providers, which have information about all our communications, is a private sector company, not a government. If those people are not securing our information, our data, if you transfer money from one place to another place now, the mobile service guy have that information. If somebody can take one of those keys and unlock it, your money is gone.
Exactly.
So a lot of that responsibility is also in the private sector. But if government doesn't enforce the law, make sure that the private sector people protect our money, protect our data, or get locked up if they mess us up, then again, they will not do it. And then, of course, with the private citizens. How many people change their password? How much education do we have out there? So for me, the issue is not just about government. It's about a lot of people. But I do believe that the government is making some moves. I just hope that they put their money where their mouth is. It's very important. But the private sector must also be asked to make sure that they do their bit.
Well, we'll take another break. When we come back, we'll focus some attention on mobile money crime. Recently, we have one mobile telecom network operator has sanctioned over 3,000 of its mobile money operators. Who is paying for this? How is the customer getting remedy for some of these things that are happening? We'll talk about that when we come back. Mr. Besiako, mobile network or mobile money, as we know we have a series of mobile money outlets in this country, and it's becoming an easy source of defrauding people. What's the direction on that? You advise government on cybersecurity. People have put their information out, they have registered their mobile phones, and they are using it to carry cash. What should we do? What are we doing to make sure that we don't lose money?
Absolutely. I think it's important. Government sees this as an issue because if we don't address the problems, it could undermine the very trust that we are building. In fact, if you look at Bank of Ghana statistics, I think the mobile money has really contributed to the financial inclusion. Because of that, probably more than 50% of Ghanaians own accounts because of the mobile money. It is really something that the government sees that as a priority. As a result, we need to address those issues. But I think we also need to understand the specifics in terms of the number of cases. Even privately, before I took up this engagement, we engage with MTN on a number of capacity building programs, primarily on awareness and also law enforcement, letting them appreciate it's a technology-driven problem, and you expect to build a capacity of law enforcement to understand, to be able to respond to some of the issues. Now, based on analysis, 75% of the cases which have been reported are based on lack of awareness. They are basic scams, social engineering tricks. See, you're advising the government, you need to know the substance. Is it just because people are talking about mobile money? Is
it a flaw in the arrangement of the mobile money, or is just people
it is
being
purely
smart?
A social problem rather than technical problem, because that's in Kenya. That is how those mobile money work. You are responsible for this device. The kind of password that you put on this to protect your data use. You know where you visit. And there were instances where people had visited certain site, downloaded Trojans. Yeah. Trojans capable of intercepting pins. Right. It is not government who is responsible. It's not MTN. I mean, they have problems there, and MTN has really developed. They've actually introduced ISO, standard. It means
let me talk about one that I'm sure a lot of Ghanaians are aware of. You get some alert on your phone that some money has, or so you get a call.
Correct.
I've wrongly transferred this amount of money to your phone.
Correct.
And then you look at your phone and you see something that looks like what the person is trying to describe. So can you please forward it back to me? And then you forward it back, and then you realize, oh, this money wasn't really wrongly transferred. But then you get an information that looks like a truck has hit your account. And so who is responsible for this? That's a very common one.
We understand that in the technology environment, and we have Professor here, impersonation is very easier. Technology as it was developed, the internet as it was developed, nobody has security in mind. So it's better we appreciate also how the genesis of the problem.
So moving forward, give us your last words in a few seconds, or what we need to do.
What the government really, the ministry has had engagement with a lot of stakeholders. The central bank has had also, that's a regulator for that sector. And awareness is key.
So awareness is, who should be responsible for creating awareness?
Absolutely. Those who are making the money.
And who are these? The mobile networks, the government?
Responsibility cut across government, but MTN.
Ultimate responsibility for government?
I will say it's a government, because you need to drive that. You need to make sure that people do that as well.
Prof, what should we do to make sure that our data is secure? Because we are putting a lot of more data out there.
A lot of. I want to quote a Vietnamese proverb. It said that if you open your door to let in the fresh air, the dust also comes in. That is the thing about technology. This technology is a wonderful technology. We are doing great things with it. Without it, we cannot really survive. But we should also remember this technology is costing a lot of headache. And some of those headaches are addressed by government, addressed by private sector, and addressed by citizens. So it's very important that we should be mindful that it's not just a technology. It comes with problems. And citizens must be aware. If you transfer your money, make sure that you go through the right process, you know what you're doing. Because it's your money. And also the mobile service providers should also know that they are almost operate like a bank. Even if I make a mistake to transfer money to a physical bank, sometimes the bank is responsible for it. So I think those things, and of course, the ultimate is government. Government must take a full responsibility. As much as we know that the technology is going to change our lives, it's going to bring us a lot of headache. And government must assist us. Cybersecurity is part of those headaches.
Mr. Bona, the last words in a few seconds.
For me, from where I sit, I think the sanctioning regime should be it should be something that when we don't, it's not punitive enough. I mean, the telecos, if you, for instance, penalize them, 1 million cedis, this is some chicken fee money for them. It should be harsh enough so that they'll put in measures, educate the people. It's one of the things I want to look at. And in terms of cybersecurity and security,
we don't have a lot of time, so
I want to say, I think a company is partnering one of the, insurance. So the insurance company should be looking at, issues to do with cybersecurity, because now that is what is going to happen. Our lives are changing. We are all, I'm researching into something where we are going to have the telepathic chipset where we won't be talking again. We'll have chipsets in our heads. It means that things are going to change rapidly.
How close are we to having chips in our head? That sounds a little scary. But then that's the reality of technology. That's where we are going.
So our insurance companies should begin to look at moving towards that area. We want to maybe insure your data for you for this amount of money. And I think we should be educated enough in terms of
how do we handle our information. That's very important. Thank you very much, Mr. Adam Bona. Thank you very much, Professor Clement Jidonu. Thank you very much, Albert Ntwibo-Esiaku. And thank you at home for being part of this discussion every Sunday at 3. Thanks to the production team. Cybersecurity is something that we cannot run away from. It's becoming an everyday thing, and so be responsible for your own safety. Take care of your numbers, take care of your details, and then we'll hold government accountable to make sure that this is safe. My name is Deborah Kwabla. God willing, same time next week, we'll bring you another discussion. Enjoy the rest of the weekend.